The morning sun bled slowly into the horizon, spilling soft gold across the endless grasslands of the African savanna. Mist still clung to the low earth, wrapping the acacia trees in ghostly veils, and somewhere far off, a hornbill's cry echoed over the plain. The land was waking, and with it came the slow, powerful rhythm of footsteps. Deep, steady, and ancient, the small herd of elephants moved like shadows through the light, their gray skin glimmering with dew. Dust rose gently beneath their feet, swirling in the quiet air. At the head walked Nalira, the matriarch, a giant with tusks polished smooth by time and wisdom. Her every movement carried calm authority. She had seen droughts, storms, and the cruelty of predators. Behind her trailed mothers, a few younger bulls, and the newest life of the herd, a small, wobbly calf named Tambo. Tambo was a heartbeat of joy in the long, slow rhythm of the herd. His ears flapped with excitement as he stumbled over roots and chased after shimmering butterflies. Every sound was new to him. The whistle of wind through dry grass, the buzz of insects rising from puddles, the deep rumble of his mother's call. The world was wide, and he wanted to taste every inch of it. Nalira watched him from a distance, her eyes soft but alert. Around them, the savanna pulsed with life. Zebras grazing in tight clusters, impalas flicking their tails, a wake of vultures circling lazily overhead. Everything seemed calm, but Nalira knew peace in the wild was never permanent. It was a fragile skin stretched over an untamed world that by mid-morning, the mist had burned away, and the herd reached a watering hole. The surface of the water glimmered under the sun, rippling with reflections of elephants dipping their trunks and spraying cool arcs into the air. Tambo squealed with delight as he plunged into the shallow pool, rolling and splashing, his tiny trunk curling awkwardly. Older calves joined him, trumpeting playfully, sending sprays of mud flying into the light. The scene was full of laughter. If the wilderness had laughter, this was it. Birds danced above them. The wind carried the scent of wet earth, and for a while, the savanna was at peace. Then, faintly, the air changed. It began with a low vibration, so deep it could almost be mistaken for distant thunder. Nalira froze mid-step, her great ears spreading wide to catch the sound. The other adults lifted their heads too, trunks raised, still and listening. Even the birds seemed to fall silent. Across the plains, a dry wind swept through the grass, bending it in one direction, toward the south, where the sound had come from. A lion's call. It was faint, stretched by distance, but unmistakable. A low rumble that carried a promise of hunger. Nalira's eyes hardened. She had heard that sound many times before, the call of those who waited for weakness, but Tambo didn't notice. He had found a bright blue dragonfly dancing over the surface of the water, and he chased it with all the clumsy energy of youth. His trunk splashed, his feet slipped, and he squeaked with laughter when the insect darted away. His innocence was a song in a world of silence. The herd began to move again, quietly, cautiously. Nalira took the lead, guiding them through open grass where the wind carried their scent away from danger. The mothers pressed their calves close. Tambo's mother, Nia, nudged him gently, but he resisted, wanting one last moment by the pool. She rumbled softly, a warning wrapped in love. With a reluctant step, he followed by noon. The sky had turned white-hot, the heat shimmering above the plains. The elephants moved slowly now, conserving energy, their skin dusted in pale earth to guard against biting flies. Tambo grew tired, his earlier excitement fading. He walked close to his mother's side, occasionally reaching up to rest his trunk against her leg. A small, tender gesture that said, "I'm here." For a while, peace returned. But peace in the wild is never still for long. As the sun sank lower, shadows stretched long across the ground. The herd reached a stretch of tall grass dotted with thorny acacias. It was a good place to rest, hidden from the harsh wind. The adults formed a loose circle, calves lying near their mothers, tails flicking lazily. Nalira stood apart, scanning the horizon. Her gaze swept over the waving grass, the distant riverbed, and a few vultures perched motionless in a tree. Everything seemed normal, but her instincts whispered otherwise. And then, the camera would find Tambo again. He was only a few steps away, standing in the honey-colored light, fascinated by a herd of guinea fowls scurrying through the grass. Their feathers flashed blue and white as they darted away, just out of reach. Tambo giggled, a soft trumpet, and followed them a few meters farther, then a few more. The grass grew taller here, brushing his sides. He stopped for a moment, uncertain, then pressed on, eager and unaware. The sounds of the herd faded slightly behind him. The air felt different, heavier, quieter. Even the insects seemed to hold their breath. Then came a sound, faint but sharp, a rustle too low to be the wind. Tambo froze. His wide, dark eyes blinked toward the sound. In the deep grass, something moved. A shadow, silent, smooth, watching. Then another. The golden light of sunset caught on something. The curve of a lion's ear. Tambo's little trunk quivered. He backed away a few steps, searching for his mother, but the tall grass blocked his view. He could hear the herd, faintly, their low rumbles rolling through the distance. But between him and them lay stillness, and in that stillness, pairs of amber eyes appeared. Point 4. Then 6 lions, young males and lionesses, lying low, muscles tense, tails twitching. The air thickened with the scent of dust and fear. One lioness crouched lower, eyes locked on the calf, breath shallow and patient. The golden grass around her swayed gently, whispering secrets of what was about to come. Tambo stumbled back, his ears flaring wide. His small voice broke through the silence, a high, trembling trumpet. It wasn't loud, but it was enough that Nalira's head snapped up instantly. The herd froze, listening. Another cry followed, sharper this time. The matriarch's eyes widened. Without hesitation, she rumbled a command, deep and booming, that rolled through the ground like thunder. Mothers rose, calves huddled together, and the herd began to move as one. In the tall grass, the lions shifted. The hunt was beginning, but Nalira was already charging, dust exploding beneath her feet. The last rays of the sun lit her tusks as she stormed across the savannah. A force older than fear itself. Behind her, the herd followed, and in the heart of that golden storm, small, trembling, and alone, Tambo stood frozen as the darkness closed in. The wind stilled. The savannah held its breath. Night was coming. The darkness came quickly that night, like ink spilling across the sky. The last colors of sunset faded behind the hills, and with them went the safety of light. The savannah transformed. Soft golden plains became a landscape of whispers and shadows. Crickets filled the air with a trembling rhythm, and a faint wind moved through the dry grass. Somewhere in that vastness, a sound broke the stillness, a low, throaty growl that made the night hold its breath. Tambo froze. The little elephant stood near a dry riverbed, his round eyes scanning the dark. He couldn't see the herd anymore, only faint shapes far across the plain. The outline of his mother, the quiet movement of older elephants swaying together. He lifted his trunk and trumpeted softly, a thin, nervous call that was swallowed by the night. The ground under his feet felt cold now, the air heavy with the scent of dust and fear. Then came another sound, a deep rumble, followed by the gentle crunch of paws through grass. Tambo turned toward it, ears flared, heart pounding. And there they were. 5 lions, emerging from the shadows like ghosts with glowing eyes. Their bodies moved low and silent, golden fur glinting faintly in the moonlight. The lead lioness, her face scarred from past hunts, stared straight at him. She was hungry. Around her, the others fanned out in practiced formation, their tails flicking with quiet confidence. Tambo took a step back, his small legs trembling. He didn't understand what they were, only that they were wrong, dangerous. He turned and ran, stumbling through the grass, but one lioness cut him off. Another slid in from the side, muscles rippling under her sleek coat. He was trapped in a half-circle of hunters. A hiss of movement. Then the first strike. The lioness lunged, claws slashing across his side. The sound tore through the quiet like lightning. Tambo shrieked in pain, stumbling, his trunk curling instinctively toward his wound. The lions pressed closer, their breath hot and ragged. Another pounced from behind, but missed, sending dust flying as Tambo stumbled away, desperate. His cries grew louder, echoing across the plains. High, panicked, heartbreaking, and far away, the herd heard him. Nalira's head snapped up. The matriarch stood perfectly still for a heartbeat. her ears wide, her gaze fixed toward the sound. Every muscle in her massive body tensed. The herd's chatter stopped. Even the youngest calf fell silent. Tambo's cry came again, raw and terrified. Nalaira rumbled low in her chest, a deep, ancient sound that meant only one thing: danger. Then she charged. The earth shook beneath her feet. Dust exploded behind her as she thundered through the grass, tusks glinting white under the moonlight. The herd followed, mothers trumpeting in fury, young bulls bellowing, calves tucked between their legs as they surged forward in a storm of sound and power. The ground itself seemed to answer their call. The narrator's voice would soften now, fading into the rhythm of the wind. In the wild, strength is not measured by tusks or size, but by the courage to protect another life. It is found in the quiet bond between a mother and her child, in the herd that stands together against fear, and in the silence that follows survival. The camera would linger on the fading shapes of the elephants as they disappear into the horizon, their silhouettes bathed in the soft gold of morning light. Above them, birds wheel and cry across the open sky, their wings flashing in the sun. The earth, scarred but alive, breathes again. Tambo walks close beside his mother, his trunk brushing her side with every step. The marks on his body will fade, but what remains within him will not. He has learned what every survivor of the savannah learns: that family is the shield against fear. That courage is born not from power, but from love. And as their low rumbles blend with the whisper of wind through grass, the savannah falls into rhythm again, a timeless heartbeat beneath the endless sky. The story of Tambo and Nalaira fades into light, leaving only the sound of distant trumpets, echoing like a hymn of survival across the plains. At the riverbed, Tambo struggled to stay upright. Blood streaked his gray skin, and the lions closed in, confident that their prey was too small to fight, too weak to run. One crouched, ready to leap, but a thunderous roar shattered the moment. Nalaira's scream cut through the night. The lion spun around just in time to see her coming, a wall of rage and muscle, eyes blazing. She slammed into the first lioness, sending her tumbling across the dirt. Another tried to leap onto her back, but Nalaira swung her trunk like a hammer, throwing the predator aside. The air filled with the sounds of battle, roars, trumpets, snarls, and the pounding of heavy feet. The herd arrived seconds later, forming a living barricade. Two mothers flanked Tambo, shielding him with their bodies. The older bulls advanced, heads low, tusks forward. The lions regrouped, circling the herd, their golden eyes flashing in the dark. They hissed, feinting in and out of the shadows, trying to draw one elephant away from the group. But Nalaira didn't move. She stood firm, trunk curled around Tambo, her ear bleeding where a claw had caught her. A lion roared and leapt. Nalaira turned and caught it with her tusks, tossing it aside like a rag. Another dashed toward the calf, but the mothers surged forward, trumpeting so loud it echoed through the valley. The lions faltered. For a moment, the battle seemed to hang in the air, hunger against unity, teeth against tusks. Tambo collapsed, too weak to stand. His small body trembled as he pressed against his mother's leg, eyes wide with terror. Nalaira's breathing was heavy, her sides streaked with blood and dust. She looked down at him, and something ancient flared within her. Not rage, but something even stronger: protection. The herd began to close ranks, forming a tight circle. Their bodies pressed shoulder to shoulder, creating a fortress of flesh and bone around the calf. Trunks intertwined, tails swished, hearts pounded in sync. The lions growled, circling again, but they couldn't find an opening. Every time one moved, an elephant shifted, blocking the path. For long minutes, the standoff dragged on. Dust hung in the air like smoke. The moon glinted off tusks and teeth. Tambo lay trembling, his small eyes fixed on the glimmer of his mother's tusk beside him. Then, from deep within the circle, Nalaira lifted her trunk high and let out a sound so deep it seemed to come from the earth itself, a low, rolling bellow that grew and grew until it became a thunderous roar. The rest of the herd joined her, their calls merging into a single, bone-shaking wave. The sound wasn't just noise, it was warning, defiance, and love all at once. It was the voice of the herd, of ancestors long gone, Of every mother who had ever stood between her child and death, the lions froze. Their ears flattened, their tails flicked nervously. The lioness with the scar looked around at her pride, eyes narrowing. She knew the truth. This hunt was lost. No hunger was worth this wall of fury. Slowly, one by one, they backed away. The grass swallowed their shapes once more, their glowing eyes fading into the dark. Silence followed. Only the sound of heavy breathing and the soft buzz of insects filled the air. Nalaira stayed still, her trunk resting gently across Tambo's back. The herd didn't move for a long time. They waited, listening, until even the echo of lions was gone. The danger had passed, but the night still felt heavy, like it carried the memory of what almost happened. The herd slowly loosened its formation. A few elephants began to nudge the dust over blood spots, covering them like old wounds. Nalaira leaned down and touched Tambo's cheek with the tip of her trunk. He lifted his trunk weakly to meet hers, a trembling, trusting gesture that said everything. The camera would linger here, the moonlight shimmering over their gray skin, the dust glowing softly in the air. Far across the plain, a lion roared again, distant this time, defeated. Nalaira didn't look back. She stood tall, her silhouette framed against the stars. While behind her, the herd gathered around their smallest member. The savannah fell silent once more, eye in the heart of the wild. Fear may divide, but courage, when shared, becomes unbreakable. The first light of dawn bled slowly across the African horizon, washing the savannah in soft gold. The air was still, thick with the scent of dust and crushed grass. A low mist hovered above the ground, curling around the silhouettes of giants, elephants, silent and motionless after the night's chaos. Dust hung in the air like smoke after a battle. The earth was scarred with deep footprints, claw marks, and the dark stains of struggle. And in the center of it all lay Tambo, the little calf who had nearly lost his life. His sides rose and fell weakly, the shallow rhythm of exhaustion. His once smooth hide was marked by gashes from claws that had torn into him, but the warmth of his mother's trunk rested across his back, a promise that he was still here, still part of the herd. Nalaira's eyes, heavy and shadowed, watched the horizon where the lions had vanished hours before. Her breath came in long, trembling sighs. Every sound, the wind brushing through dry grass, the buzz of waking insects, felt amplified, as if the world were exhaling with her. Then, slowly, the wilderness began to sing again. A hornbill called from a distant tree. The chatter of weaver birds rose from the acacias. Life, cautious and fragile, was returning to the plains. The lions lingered far away, faint golden shadows retreating into the brush as the light grew stronger. They had been denied their prize. The herd had survived. For a long while, the elephants did not move. They stood together in tight formation, their bodies touching, their tusks gleaming faintly in the morning glow. The matriarch's low rumble passed through them like a heartbeat, a sound of reassurance, of unity. One by one, the herd lowered their trunks toward Tambo, touching him gently, memorizing the scent of his survival. He was weak, trembling with each breath, but his eyes fluttered open. And when he saw his mother, he made a faint, broken trumpet. Nalaira's heart seemed to answer in kind. She bent low, nuzzling her son's forehead, dust swirling softly around them. For the first time since the attack, she allowed herself to close her eyes. The following days moved slowly, heavy with healing. The herd traveled only short distances, pausing often to let Tambo rest. His wounds began to close beneath layers of cool mud and leaves, natural medicine applied by the gentle touch of older elephants who had seen many seasons. They used their trunks to coat him with dust, a protective layer against biting flies and infection. Each evening, the herd would form a circle around him, their massive shadows a living wall against the predators that prowled beyond sight. The savannah had changed since that night. The dry riverbed where Tambo had fallen was still marked by churned earth and lion tracks. The silence there felt different now, less like peace, more like remembrance. The herd passed through carefully, their feet stirring the dust of memory. The younger elephants, once playful and careless, now moved with quiet purpose. Even the calves kept close to their mothers, pressing against their sides when the wind carried the faint smell of lion. Nalaira never strayed far from her son. Her ears still bore the deep tear from the fight, a mark that would remain for the rest of her life. But her strength did not fade. She guided the herd with calm authority, her gaze always sweeping the horizon. At dusk, when the light turned red and long shadows stretched over the grasslands, she would stand watch beside Tambo as he slept. Her massive frame silhouetted against the dying sun, the rhythm of the wild continued, slow and steady. Rain clouds gathered and broke, filling distant ponds. Herds of zebra grazed where blood had dried. The circle of life carried on, as it always did, but something subtle had shifted within Tambo Point one evening. As the herd made its way back toward that same dry riverbed, he paused. His legs were stronger now, his wounds nearly healed, but he stopped suddenly, head raised. Nalaira turned, sensing his hesitation. The others moved ahead, their footsteps thudding softly against the cracked earth, but Tambo stayed. His ears flicked forward. He stared into the distance where the lions had once emerged from the tall grass. For a long, still moment, he did not move. The savannah stretched endlessly before him, gold and endless beneath the amber glow of twilight. Somewhere out there, the lions were still alive, still hungry, still watching. But Tambo did not tremble this time. He lifted his trunk high, letting the wind wash over him. The smell of the grasslands, of dust and life, filled his senses. He had faced death and survived. He understood, in the quiet way only animals can, that fear was part of life. But so was courage. Nalaira stepped closer, her presence grounding him. She touched his trunk gently, a mother's silent reassurance. Then, together, they turned and followed the herd into the glowing horizon. As the camera would pull wide, the savannah opened up beneath the rising moon, a sea of gold and green stretching far beyond sight. The herd moved like a single organism, their shapes merging with the land itself. In the distance, a faint trumpet echoed, not of warning, but of triumph.